If you want to build a social media management agency or really any type of marketing agency, one thing you really need to focus on is pricing. If you underprice, aka you don't charge enough money, you will probably sign clients. But then when it comes time for you to outsource and maybe hire a graphic designer, video editor, or somebody that can take some of the work off your plate, you'll probably be pretty stuck, right? You're not going to have much profit left over. So really getting pricing right from the beginning is the key. You can imagine if you were to scale up your business and make 100, 200,000 per year in revenue, you would need to know the pricing now, what to charge now to your clients to make sure that when you're making that amount in revenue, that you've got a really good profit margin as well, right? You don't want to make 100,000 per year, but actually only make 10,000 per year. That doesn't really sound very good, right? That sounds simple, but you'd be very surprised at how many people get to these numbers, 50,000, 100,000 per year, but their profit margin is really much lower than it should be. So they're actually working extra to theoretically make more money because it's revenue, but when it comes to the money they make personally, their profit, it's a lot lower. So why am I qualified to even tell you or teach you about this? Personally, I've made this mistake. And with my marketing agency, it has generated over $1 million. And there were times where our profit margin was amazing, really, really good and healthy, 70, 80% in certain months. And we had months where it was a lot lower. So I'm going to walk you through my entire pricing guide right now so that you know exactly how to charge. So if you're an agency owner or you want to be an agency owner, it's going to be very specific to you if you run a social media management agency or you do content creation or you offer any service that can be broken down by pieces. For example, with content creation, if someone pays me for 10 pieces of content, obviously I could break my pricing down as a certain price per piece of content. So this kind of model would apply to email marketing, short form video creation, and most services. The reason being is the number one pricing guide that I follow is exactly this. It's charging per piece of content. So let's just go through a couple examples. If I get paid for 10 pieces of content, a very easy way for me to work this out is to go and find out what I would need to pay somebody else. If I was to have a graphic designer create a carousel for Instagram or a nice infographic, this is probably going to run me in the range of $5 to $10. Just depends on the quality and who I'm looking to work with. So that's part one. We'll call that step A. Step B is to figure out what your profit margin should be. So if you don't know what your profit margin should be, or you're just new to this and you're thinking, Adam, I don't have an absolute idea of this, but I'm going to give you some guidelines. There are people I know in the marketing agency space with 30% profit margins. There are people I know with 70, and there's people I know with 95. The difference is 95% is a one person. You know, it's just the founder. They do pretty much everything. And if that's the way you want to run your business, it's completely fine. This pricing guide will still help you make the right choices. People that are operating at, let's say, 70%, in my opinion, have done this really well. It's normally still one person, but then they've got their team underneath them. And this is graphic designers, video editors, virtual assistants, client managers, that kind of thing. Person that has gone down the route and they're at 30% profit margin, from what I have observed, okay, this is just my opinion. Yes, it's one person. Yes, they've got a team, but in my opinion, they've got too many systems. I'm telling you this because this is a student I'm thinking of that I spoke to last week, and his problem was that he had probably about 20 softwares he was paying for in his agency, and his agency is doing less than $10,000 per month. If I was to start an agency again tomorrow, based on what I know now, I would probably only use 5 softwares, right? And I would keep them on really the lowest paying plans that I could until my profit margins were really in a nice place. So this guy could very easily get from 30% to 70% by changing 2 things. One is by charging more money to his clients. It's the easiest way. And number 2 is getting rid of some of the systems he has, because a lot of them are what we call nice to have systems, but they're not necessary. Where I suggest you aim for is this, the middle, 70%. I have tested this with my own agency where we were doing months between anywhere from $10,000 all the way up to $50,000 per month. And we were able to maintain 70% profit margins in some of those months. And in the months that we maintained the 70% margin, it's when things really worked the best. I didn't have to work all day on the business. We could have a team manage most of the process, but we weren't necessarily or recklessly overspending on extra team members we didn't need, or softwares, or new things that we thought would help but really weren't necessary for the business. All right, so once we have got our rough price per piece, if we're paying somebody, our profit margin, we can then actually calculate what the price we should charge should be. So right here, I've got our pricing calculator. This is a spreadsheet that will spit out the margins that you should be charging. It'll spit out the price that you should be charging. And it's pretty easy to follow. Now, you can obviously go ahead and create a similar version of this for yourself. This is something I give to my mentorship students, and obviously can't give out this spreadsheet publicly, but I can walk you through how it works, and you can do something similar. Just one of the examples of things we give to people in my program. We really just try and make the whole process as simple as possible so that it's just plug and play. We just follow our step by step. It just speeds up the journey times 10. But let's get into it. So let's take this example here. So in this case, we're going to charge for 10 pieces of content. Our desired profit margin is 70%. We've actually gone with a higher price here, just to give you an example. So in this case, let's say we're paying $15 per piece of content. And I can change this. Okay, so let's go with our previous example. Let's go with 10. This then will calculate the total cost to me. This is just total pieces times the average piece of content. And then that spits out our total price. Okay, this is, as you see here, this is charged to the client based on your profit margin and the price per piece and the piece of content. So this then gives me the total profit after cost of freelancers, and that is 70%. So we have just figured out how to use the price per piece calculator. And what this will give us is really just really easy to follow. If I want to do 10 pieces of content, it gives me the dollar price that I should charge to client. Now, this only really works, as we looked at the very beginning here, if you are offering content creation, so a certain number of pieces per week or per month, or a certain fee at the end of the month. And the same goes for email marketing or any other service where you can break it down by piece. If you're doing something like social media management, I want to pull your attention to this. You're probably including content creation, right? You might be getting paid to do 10 pieces of content for an Instagram page, but that's not the only thing you're getting paid for. You're actually getting paid to post the content, to write captions to go along with the graphic or the video, to post Instagram stories, and maybe even respond to comments and messages on the business's page as well. In that case, we cannot just use the price per piece calculator. It'll give us our starting point, but the next one we're going to use is basically just an hourly calculator. Very simple. We're going to estimate, based on the tasks you would do as a social media manager, how many hours this will take you per week or per month, depending on what you've discussed with your client, aka what kind of level they want you to do. And then from there, we're going to be able to figure out what your hourly rate should be, calculate that on a monthly basis, and then put together our price per piece plus hourly on a monthly, and voila, put them together, we've got our total price. So back on my pricing calculator, if I come to my hourly tab, you will see the same thing, but done hourly. So if you're a social media manager, all right, let's go to this example here. Let's say an estimate hours per month is 10. Where did I get this figure? This is 20 minutes per day spread across over 30 days in a month. That's the rough estimate. 20 minutes per day is going to be enough. If you have a graphic designer creating a piece of content for you, or a video editor, and then you're taking that piece and you're going to post it, write a caption for it, post some stories, and maybe reply to some comments and messages, assuming this is a small business, and this isn't a business with 50,000, 100,000 followers, then this should work for you. If you're going to work with a much bigger company, and you're going to be managing their comments and their messages, you can estimate that you're going to spend at least double the amount of time each day on that specific. So this is very important to have this conversation with a business, to look at their page and maybe even get them to pull it up on their phone on the call and show you how many comments do they get a day, do they get many messages. Now let's go through the example. So we've figured it out. So again, this is roughly 20 minutes per day, and that gives us total 10 hours per month. Again, profit margin, we want to go for the 70%. The average price per hour charged by freelancers, and this is just, you got to figure out the market price. What I'm going to give to you is just some estimates. So for a social media manager, this might be around $10 to $15. Now, this is normally for somebody that's, fluent English speaker. They might be a digital nomad, somebody that's traveling around, but fluent English, and they've maybe done this before, okay? If you want to go with someone a lot cheaper, right, you could go and get yourself a virtual assistant between probably $3 to $5. They may not be fluent English, and they may not have done this before, but it's something you can train them to do very, very easily. It's not the most complicated job in the world. So let's just go with somewhere in the middle. All right, we'll go for $10. This will give us total cost to you, $100. And based on our profit margin, this would be $330. Our total profit after the cost of our freelancer is now $233. And if you were to put those two together, you could now get your total price. So let's say I'm charging $333 a month for the social media management part, and I'm also charging $333 per month for the content creation. Put the two together, that comes out at $666, which is not a nice number, so let's round it up. $670. And now that's going to account for your graphic designer, video editor, but also for your social media manager or virtual assistant. The beauty of this, if you are just starting off, what I would recommend to you is you can outsource content creation, get a graphic designer, get a good video editor. That's going to pay dividends for you, right? Like that's really going to pay you back in the long run. But the social media management is really something you can do yourself. Never done it before. You can understand how to do it in probably 30 to 60 minutes. It's very basic. And by doing it, you will have a lot more control. Otherwise, you will have to have a virtual assistant or a social media manager log into your client's account. That means they'll have access to their password, and it's just a bit more complex. And sometimes that can be an issue if you have just signed a brand new client and you haven't really built up that much trust with them. It might be easier to just do it yourself. To get my marketing agency past $10,000 per month, this is the model I followed. I had a graphic designer creating content, and then I was acting as a social media manager for clients. So I would write captions, post the stories, post the content, reply to comments and DMs. And yes, it took some time. As we looked at, probably 20 minutes per client per day. So if I was to have, let's say, 10 clients, you do the maths, it's going to take me a few hours a day. But it would have meant I had full control, and then I was hitting at least 70% profit margin. In fact, probably a lot higher, because if my profit margin is 70% just on the content, and I'm charging, let's say, $300 a month for that, but then the social media management, I'm charging $300 a month for that, but I'm doing it all, that's obviously 100% margin. So overall, I'm probably hitting an 85% profit margin. So that is my pricing guide. If you are offering something else, a different type of service, I can make a different video on that specific topic. But for those of you that want to do content and social media management, this should get you off the line, and this can get you past your first 10 clients. If you feel like this kind of help is useful to you and you'd want to be able to speak one-on-one with me each week and have access to my community, but also a more detailed training program that gives you templates just like this, you'll see there's information in the description of the video if you feel that would help you. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.